What is up, everyone? It is another Monday evening. It's really hot, literally everywhere. So I hope you're doing well. We're here with a hot show. I hated that. But we have an interview to show you guys tonight. We had the pleasure of interviewing Jonathan Davis about a week ago. So tonight we're going to give you some news, give you some updates, and then we're going to premiere that and hang out with you guys. So very excited. I've had a long day, but there's nowhere else I would rather be and no one else I would rather have pulling the lever, hitting the button, freshly back from Coruscant. Wes, punch it! Welcome to the Living Force, a UTD Network podcast all about Star Wars books and audiobooks, of course. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me tonight to chat about some Star Wars and hang out for an interview is the full crew. We have freshly back from vacation and back in his normal internet, Dr. Corey Helton. What's up, buddy?
Hello. Man, it was a technological disaster last week. But yes, I am back from vacation. Visited Jekyll Island, Georgia with my wife and her family. Had a good time. Did a bunch of history tours and nerd stuff, and it was great. And now we're back in my own sanctum of lighting and RGB.
That's right. The lighting looks sick, and I'm glad you had a great time on the magical history tour. And you know who didn't go anywhere and did nothing? Actually, I don't know if that's true, but Dr. Charles Hankels didn't change a thing, and he is here.
Change nothing. I'm not studying history. I'm over here making it, guys.
Wow.
Yes.
That was smooth.
No, my sister was in town this weekend for her birthday. And so we were, out living it up, having a good time. And it was a good practice run, Eric, for when you and Charlie visit.
That's right. Me and Charlie are going to come visit Charles in Charlotte next month. Very excited. Also, Charles, I got to say, I like the wishful thinking of you wearing the Hoth shirt right now. Just putting those vibes out.
Yeah,
and
just
these,
some cold vibes.
Absolutely. But no one has the coldest vibes than the utter focus and pinpoint concentration, the war zone level effort of our producer and lovely man, Wes Jenkins. What's up, buddy?
Hello, everyone. I did go somewhere. I went to stunning Matagorda, Texas, where I roll chopped a CC pond in a tractor, and then I built a deer. I built a deer pen and put a deer feeder in it. So
I understood the second half of that sentence. You wanted a what now in a tractor?
I roll chopped a CC bean pond, which is basically a pond that has like grass growing up out of it, and you got to cut it out before the larvae or the seeds like sprout. Because if they sprout it and you run over it, you shoot seeds everywhere, and then it grows out like uncontrollably, and then you have to put chemicals everywhere. So I did that, and that's why I'm all sunburnt today. So aloe vera, kids.
Wow,
because you fill it up with water, and then the ducks fly in at the end of the year when it's colder.
And then you shoot the ducks.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Okay, great. so you're baiting a... You know what? Who says you don't learn anything on this show? All right? Welcome to all of you pond baiters and duck blind. Hi, everyone.
We are really all very different on this show.
We are. Yeah. I love it.
Oh, man. It's so funny.
I love it. We're all very different. On that note, this isn't in the outline, but I will tease what we all got to do this weekend was see another rough cut of our Asheville documentary.
Yeah, we did.
Where we all came together and talked about our differences. That, again, if you're on our Patreon, that is it's a future thing. But I was going to tease that a little bit because we talked a lot about like our differences and how they brought us together in UTD, and it's made me very emotional this weekend as I went to Taco Bell. That was my big thing.
Trademarked.
That's right.
Soon.
But of course, you all that are here listening and watching, welcome. I hope if you're here, you're enjoying yourself, you're enjoying your week. Again, reminder to like the video, subscribe on YouTube. You can check out all the amazing videos that have been posted in the last couple of weeks. Our video team is crushing the game, especially a timeline video that Emma just put together that is doing hashtag numbers. I hope you're all enjoying that quite a bit. And I want to thank everyone as well who tuned in for the Star Tours event last week. We had a great time going to Coruscant on our show, as you may have seen or listened to. And of course, Cosmic Force headed over to Mustafar, and Legends Look Back went to Yavin 4. It was a great time. And of course, the Star Wars Archives had an episode. And Wednesday, our very own Ghost Crew will be putting up a Patreon exclusive episode about Lothal. So we're very excited to finish up that event. I love doing these. It makes me feel closer to our whole network. It was a really great time. But looking forward, I want to ask you guys about a little something. We don't do a lot of speculation on this show, but later on this week, there is a panel that will be coming at San Diego Comic-Con all about Lucasfilm Publishing. So we don't have any official ideas yet, but Kevin Scott's going to be there. A lot of other authors are going to be there. What do you guys think we might get out of San Diego Comic-Con? Because this is kind of one of the last big events to get announcements for the rest of the year. What do you think we might get?
Lucasfilm
I think
Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would love something after episode 9.
Oh yeah, just like a brand new project
Just a brand new
announcement.
project.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Pod
Go ahead.
racing.
Pod racing.
Pod racing. Pod racing. That has to be coming. It has to be coming. I think we're gonna see it in the next year, Charles. I think we are. Like that's
I think so too.
my gut feeling.
I think that we're gonna get some kind of High Republic Phase 2 thing. I'm not sure what, but I'll do one better. I'll say we're gonna get pod racing in the High Republic Phase 2.
Yeah. I think we'll definitely get some. I guess we definitely get some Phase 2 reveals. Something else. I mean, there's still plenty to reveal. I think we don't know everything yet. I don't think about Phase 2, so that'll be interesting to see what we get out of that. And I wouldn't be surprised. And they tend to announce something new, like that's not related to things that we already know at these types of events. So maybe we'll get another book, kind of like Brotherhood or Shadow of the Sith, or any of these sort of standalone books that have nothing to do with High Republic, right? So that'd be cool if we get some more of those.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Of course, if there's any big news, we'll cover it next week on the show, as we do. But stay tuned to the Twitter sphere, and I'm sure we'll find out immediately. But for a book that is coming out next to me here, I do have 2 lovely books. First off, I do have, to answer Stephanie in the chat, this is a paperback, an uncorrected advanced proof of Padawan. That's coming out in a little while. I believe a week from, 2 weeks from tomorrow. A week from tomorrow. It's a week from tomorrow. I have to write that review. I have a week from tomorrow. Padawan does come out, so make sure you get that in. And then The Princess and the Scoundrel just arrived literally an hour before the show started. And here, let me show it off here. This beautiful hardcover. I want to show you guys this beautiful ombre design. I really freaking love it. Very much like the Padme trilogy. Look at that. I didn't realize with the colors.
Yeah.
It's very emblematic of that.
Love
that a lot.
This is one of those beautiful covers we've had in a while, I think. It is gorgeous.
Yes, absolutely. And it's good timing because, yes, Brandon, today we did get a new excerpt from The Princess and the Scoundrel that has, if you don't want any spoilers, skip like 30 seconds ahead or close your ears now. We get to see Han propose to Leia in the excerpt. We get to see how it happens, which is very fun, very cool. It's over on inverse.com. I got tweeted out by the Star Wars official account and everything today. So make sure you check that out if you like. And this is coming out in August. But we have a couple other updates to keep you appraised of. No, that's not the verb I wanted. Apprised of? We want to let you know about over on utini.com. Because we've actually been hard at work updating the site. A lot of folks have been telling us how much they love our big guides, our best of guides, our kind of, what do you call those, Corey? Like our main, not our getting started guys, but kind of our overarching guides.
Yeah, kind of long form, like important content, evergreen content, kind of about like, the top books that are in existence. It's important that we keep those types of things updated for sure. So you guys have been hard at work at that, haven't you, Eric?
Yeah, we have. Me and, of course, our phenomenal content manager, Emma, we've been working in tandem to get these going. And after 2 years and roughly, I think, let me check the math, 86,000 new book releases, we did update our best canon books of all time article. It is published. It is on the site. And as of July 16th, this is now what Utini considers the best canon books. We have the full article up there as we show on the screen, and of course is in the description down below. We give you the best novel, the best adult novel. We give you the best YA novels, the best audio dramas, which is now a new category we get to have. We now talk about the best series. So basically, we've updated that to reflect canon as it stands now, and we'll do our best to keep that updated. Probably yearly is going to be our goal to make sure that we're bringing you the best updated content. But that's not the only thing that we've updated. We've also updated the best Legends books article, which even though we've not gotten new Legends releases, the community shifts, the community changes based on what we're thinking. And our very own Jared Mays was hard at work looking at this, our Legends expert from Legends Look Back, and he brought this into the new era. So if you want your best Legends books, that is also on the site. You can check out there. And I wanted to give a huge shout out to Emma, who wrote an article called The Best Books to Read After a little show called Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to try to do a better job of letting you guys know the new articles as they pop up on the site, but Emma did a video on this that was great, and now we've put it in article form as well to show you guys all of the best books that if you've just watched Obi-Wan, or if you had friends that have just watched Obi-Wan and are like, oh, I want a book about this great legendary Jedi. I want to become Charles, essentially. We have made the article to give you the best books and comics that'll give you a taste of Obi-Wan in canon, specifically. So go ahead. You're not going to see Kenobi. You're not going to see Wild Space on this one. But if you want canon novels and comics, go check that article out. And, of course, the accompanying video that Emma did a great job on. And go to utini.com for all your book-related needs. We now want to give a quick thank you, a huge thank you, a mammoth-sized thank you to our Patreon community, including a very new annual patron. Jason joined us yesterday to be an annual patron. Thank you so much. It really does help us plan our whole year at Utini with things that we're able to do and create for you guys. We have so many great ideas to continue pumping out content for you in the next year. So Jason, thank you for joining the family and making that possible. And if you want to join the Utini Patreon community, head over to utini.com/Patreon. We got a bunch of tiers. We got a bunch of things. We got a bunch of content. We got behind the scenes videos, and we are actively in meetings to plan a bunch of other cool stuff that's coming your way. That's all I'll say about that so far. Now, one last reminder before we get to our main event tonight. We got books coming out, as I said before, but now I want to give you exact dates. Go to the utini.com release calendar and make sure to get your pre-orders in for Padawan by Kirsten White. That's coming out July 26th. And, of course, for the immaculately covered The Princess and the Scoundrel by Beth Revis, coming out on August 16th. Princess and the Scoundrel is embargoed for now, so all I'll say is those excerpts are real good, aren't they? Anyway, moving on. Our main event tonight is something we've only tried once before, and we loved it so much we want to do it again. A lot of you guys know that we do a lot of interviews on this show. We love talking to creators of Star Wars content, whether it be authors, whether it be narrators like Mark Thompson, whether it be anyone that's involved with making Star Wars books and comics. We love it. And last week, we were lucky enough to speak to Jonathan Davis, renowned audiobook narrator, and we recorded the whole thing. And what we're going to do tonight, we're going to play it for you guys, premiere it, and we're going to be right here with you in the chat, kind of reacting along with you live. If you have any questions about questions that we asked him or things about him, throw them in there. We'll answer them as we go. And guys, before we kind of roll this, I want to ask you two things. One, what's one of your favorite Jonathan Davis projects? And two, what was one of your favorite things about chatting with him before we kind of show everyone how it went?
I have an immediate answer for this.
Go.
Darth Plagueis, he was the narrator for that. In fact, my re-listening to Darth Plagueis last year is what motivated me to kind of Eric does a lot of our arranging of interviews and things like that. And I reached out to Eric like after I finished that, and I was like, listen, we got to get Jonathan Davis on the next year. So we've been working on it for a little while, and it was a lot of fun, man. That was a super fun conversation. I had a bit of a celebrity moment with Jonathan, because like it feels like he's been such a huge part of my Star Wars book like journey in a lot of ways. And, he was kind of doing books before Mark Thompson was, and before, now Mark is kind of like the one that everybody knows. And, JD has been there since, a long time ago, man. He's been doing audiobooks for a long time. So, so long that pronunciations are different, right? Like Darth Plagueis has a bunch of weird pronunciations of different characters and stuff. And it's cool to kind of see how that has evolved over time. So, I think now that we've talked to JD and Mark, we kind of have, I don't know if it actually goes by JD, so don't call
Corey,
him that.
after one interview, on first name basis, talking to Jonathan, we talk JD.
My boy John, my boy JD. Yeah, I know, it's hilarious. John, if you're listening to this, I'm embarrassed. It was a fun conversation. We really had a good time. We hung out after the show and talked for a long time, and it was a lot of fun. It meant a lot to have that, so I really appreciate him coming on.
Yeah. I alluded to this in the interview, so listeners, you'll hear this, but Jonathan Davis was the narrator of my first Star Wars audiobook, and that was the Force Unleashed book that was done. So, or novelization that was done. So that is like my favorite Jonathan Davis project, just because it holds a special place in my heart. It kind of introduced me to that medium. And those stories are just great fun and just overpowered ridiculousness. And yeah, I think my favorite part was just talking about life. We, after we actually ended the interview, I mean, Jonathan hung out with us and we talked about like our favorite other IPs and like his family and their plans, like all kinds of stuff. It's just fun to get to know these people, kind of just get a little glimpse into their life, even beyond the Star Wars stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was really fun. So the book that I was chastised for not being able to read for the longest time was one of my favorite audiobooks read by JD himself, Jonathan Davis. And I got to say, that's because of his narrating and because of that book itself. I mean, that's probably one of my top two. It's in my top two. That and Darth Bane. And he read both of them. So that, and he sang one of my favorite songs, Freak on a Leash. So good for him. Same name, different guy, but interview was great. I mean, you can tell that he has professional equipment set up. He was in his booth. Spoiler alert!
That's cool.
And you can really hear like the audio quality when he calls in.
Yeah, that was rad. So you take Revenge of the Sith. I'll just say your second one for me was Darth Bane. That's one of my favorite projects, like the way he gets into it, and that was probably, I'll say, one of my favorite parts of the interview is really going on a lot about that project specifically, like what that meant. Like we asked a lot about, that character. And of course, I don't want to get ahead of any of his answers, but he clearly has so much love for that character and that project. And that's one of the cool things that he and Mark share, and all these writers and authors and narrators and everyone really seems to share in interviews, is you can feel how much they love doing this. And they really love these characters. It's really cool. So, I guess without any further ado, everyone sit back, jump in that chat, and enjoy our chat with Jonathan Davis. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of The Living Force, a UTD Network podcast all about the books and those who narrate them tonight. I am very stoked to be joined by our regular cast of characters. I, Eric Eilerson, one of your hosts, and of course we have Dr. Corey Helton. What's up, dude?
Hello. I apologize for my different scenery. I guess I have here. I'm on vacation this week with my wife's family, and I'm in Jekyll Island in Georgia, and I'm on a beautiful second story porch. It's a little humid out here, I'm not gonna lie, but I do have a little bit of a different camera set up today, so apologies for that. I also, like a complete noob, forgot to pack audio equipment, so I had to swing by a Best Buy on the way here and pick up something, so hopefully things sound okay. So, a little bit different today, but that's all right. We'll make it work.
Well, I'm glad you found the first ever humidity in Georgia. Never would have thought. We also, of course, have the ever constant and the still regularly mic'd Dr. Charles Hankel. What's up, dude?
Hey guys, yeah, I changed nothing. My AC is set to a crisp 74, and I am excited to do this interview.
Wow. Didn't know you were going to be bragging that early in the call, but I appreciate it. And, of course, the man handling the cameras and also handling the melody of all of our hearts, Wes Jenkins. What's up, buddy?
Hello, everyone. It is quite the warm one. Yes, it's a warm one all over the world, so we're not going to talk about the weather, much like what I'm going to do on Monday when everybody comes into the office and asks, hey, it was a hot one this weekend, huh? Yeah, Charles, it sure was. All right.
Well, I'm glad we're all making it through because it has gotten us to tonight and our very special guest. If you have ever listening to a Star Wars audiobook, I can guarantee you have heard his voice on things like Master and Apprentice, Revenge of the Sith, Kenobi, the Darth Bane trilogy, and of course, our recently lauded Star Wars Brotherhood. It is the incredibly talented Jonathan Davis. Welcome to the show.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Of course. Thanks so much for making the time. It is wild to hear your voice in this setting because we've heard you in person. It's so many folks in the Star Wars galaxy, obviously over the years. And before we jump into the project, let's just start way at the top. The easy softball question: how did Star Wars first come into your life?
How did it fall into my lap? Have you spoken or have you interviewed Kevin Thompson, who's the producer of the audiobooks? Or
We haven't talked to Kevin. We talked to Mark, who has mentioned Kevin as
Yes.
well, but not Kevin yet.
Mark Thompson, the great Mark Thompson. Kevin Thompson is the producer and director of all of these projects, and I started out. I was doing voiceover work as just run-of-the-mill kind of work from cartoons and animated series and commercials and other types of narration. And suddenly, my agent at the time told me that if I wanted to audition for an audiobook. And I wasn't that familiar with it, and I auditioned, and it was a book called Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson, which is a real seminal kind of cyberpunk book.
Yeah.
And this is about 20 years ago. And Kevin was the producer and the director, and he hired me for that project. And maybe like a year later, he called again, and my agent called me, and they were auditioning people for the Star Wars audiobooks. And I went in, and luckily I was chosen. And that's how I started. And this was back in like 2001, 2002. My first Star Wars audiobook, I believe, was Attack of the Clones. So it was R.A. Salvatore was the author. And I didn't do Phantom Menace, but then I did that, and then I did Revenge of the Sith, and then it just kind of it continued with that. That's how it began for me. And it's been great because at the time they were only using maybe like one narrator to do everything, and now it's really expanded into its own universe of its own, in a way, just like a narrator universe. We have such a great group of people that are working. Obviously, Mark, who you've mentioned, but there's quite a number of other folk who have been working over the years, and I know they've really. Nick Martorelli, who's the executive producer, and Kevin have really tried to find new people, as the Star Wars universe expands in many ways, so that they also want the world and the audiobook world to expand also in terms of its narrators.
Yeah, it's been tremendous hearing all of them, like folks like Saskia Marvell doing Alphabet Squadron, and hearing a lot of narrators like do the audio dramas now. Like you get so many voices, which has been so fun. And you mentioned Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, obviously one of our favorites. It reminds me, when we spoke to Mark, he talked about doing Force Awakens and doing the narration before the film was out. Was that same with you with Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith? Like, did you know what happened because you had to record before the film?
I did. Yeah, I received it. And what was so cool, I remember specifically for Attack of the Clones, it had notes in the margins from Lucas and other people, talking about, commenting on the story. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I know this.
That's cool.
And this was before, and the books are so great. They just are much more in depth. And of course you just get the subtext and what everybody's thinking, and I love the descriptions of the worlds. That's one of my favorite things to do as a narrator, is more than dialogue or just character work. What I really enjoy is the description of each world, each planet you come across, and how that actually also affects the narration itself. So yeah, that's how we began with that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool, especially with Revenge of the Sith. I mean, that book is famously one of the only books we've heard that George Lucas kind of had his own hands on, to some degree. That's really cool to have that experience. And Mark Thompson had similar things to say about some of the sequel novelizations and getting to see what things happen, ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I gotta say, you talked so much about getting into Star Wars there and how you had been doing voiceover and stuff before then. Even before all this happened, did you have a moment when you decided, you know what? I think I want to do voice narration. I want to do voiceover. Like what was that process coming to? Because it's a field I think that, like you said, is expanding more now. But it seemed like it kind of has only recently become, I guess, a career path that a lot more people know about.
Yeah, it's funny, because back then, people still do. They call like books on tape. That's what it used to be called.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Books on tape. But it has, and since Audible, which is, I have a great respect for the folks there. Don Katz and Audible have really specifically created this, this new medium, or really promoted the medium in a way where it's become really, really popular.
Yeah.
And just growing exponentially. I mean, I was started off kind of, I'm sure you heard the similar things from Mark and others, that I was an actor. I was doing theater work, and I moved to New York, and I had always been doing voiceover because that was one of those niches that people, that were in the performing arts, if you either came from broadcasting or you came from the performing arts, like theater or film or something, and then people would say, well, here's another niche to do, voiceover work, it's a way. And I started doing it, and then it just, that kind of took over things for me. That became the bulk of the work that I did. And narration for me is my favorite. I love narration, and I remember when I was a kid, I used to listen to, like, I'd watch National Geographic,
Yes.
and I would listen to those narrators. And there was a narrator, Richard Kiley. He was the man that used to do the National Geographic documentaries, and there would be that music that would go like bum 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 bum, and then it would say like, and then it would come, Richard Kiley would come in and start narrating and go like, in the deepest, darkest wilderness, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you remember that.
Yeah, you unlocked a memory right there. Exactly.
Well, I still remember I did my first National Geographic documentary. It was called Battle for the Elephants, and I was hired by this producer for National Net Geo, and I remember doing it, and it had the typical thing, will this be the last battle for the elephants? And then I remember watching it, I'd done it, and suddenly that same music popped on, ba 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 ba, and I couldn't believe that I was there. This was like my dream as a kid, seeing this and going, I want to do that. And then I couldn't believe it. Many, many years later, I actually did it. So that's how
amazing.
things started for me, or that's my love for, I really do have a love for narration. And in the ways that I was telling you before, it's beyond just doing dialogue, and it's really storytelling. I remember a listener told me, he said to me once, somebody wrote to me and said that what they know, I think they kind of know that the narration has succeeded if it feels to them as if they're sitting around a campfire and listening to a tribal elder kind of tell you a story. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I know that I'm on the right track, when somebody, when you're bringing people in, when you're, you're kind of trawling them in so that they can really get a gist of what the story is. and that's always
Wow.
been a joy for me.
Yeah. I've always found audiobooks so interesting in that way because it is kind of like that intimate storytelling more so than any other medium. And I gotta say, the idea of these new actors in Star Wars being like, I walked in the Millennium Falcon and I felt like a kid again. To have you had that same joy when you're like, the National Geographic theme hit and that was me. It's like, it's so beautiful to kind of have that balance.
Yeah, what an accomplishment. That's amazing just to know that you saw that as a goal of yours and you obtained it like, some odd years later. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I felt the same with Star Wars. Actually, obviously, very, very special to be. When I couldn't believe it. But then more so, people. It was kind. I was kind of dense. Some people would say, "What? You're doing what?" And I was, yeah.
Right,
It didn't hit me in the beginning. It really didn't hit me, And then, now I know how blessed it is, to be a part of this family. It's been great.
Yeah. Now you're bringing it up. You told us that your first book that you actually narrated was Attack of the Clones. So I got to know, prior to that, is Jonathan Davis a Star Wars fan? I mean, it's okay if the answer is no, but I'm just curious, what was your relationship with the franchise before you were directly involved?
Definitely. But when I got involved, now granted, did I read was I into like, did I read the Yuuzhan Vong books and stuff like that? No, I didn't. Not until I had to. Then when I was hired, then I was like, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
No, it was just the 3 films that had and then Phantom Menace, I did see that. Which at the time I was, I wasn't sure how I felt about it at the time. No, definitely I was. But I've expanded my taste too. There's lots of things that I'm a fan of now also.
Perfect. I mean, and the characters in all those movies have grown so much since then too. Obviously, because of all these, the books and the comics. One of the things that we've always loved at Utini and Living Force has been the ability of these books and projects you're a part of, the ability they have to just make these characters from ideas in the background to like these celebrities almost. Like, Bail Organa is one of my favorite characters in the world. He has 10 minutes of screen time, but you read these books and it becomes so exciting. And you've obviously voiced so many of them.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, for you personally, is there a favorite series or set of characters that you really loved voicing, especially from those earlier years back in the early 2000s and stuff?
Well, and in truth, I am serious. I do like I found the Yuuzhan Vong. I found that fascinating. I loved that they were like this organic species. Everything was made organically. Yeah. I like that a lot. If I have my favorite is the Darth Bane trilogy.
Yes.
That's
yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. That's so much fun. I mean, one of the things we talk frequently about is folks will often get completely different experiences from reading than they will in audio form. So it's really fascinating. We frequently will tell folks that, if you had felt a certain way about a book, or maybe you didn't love it that much, maybe give it another chance later on in audio form. And I think there's something about that intimacy, I think, that you can really capture with audio that maybe there's nothing reading on your own.
True. So I mean, you kind of teed this up for me. I mean, one of ours, pretty much the entire team's favorite series is the Darth Bane trilogy, and we have it set aside as part of our foundational 5, as part of one of the books that you absolutely have to read. Of the 5 books that we recommend is the Darth Bane trilogy, most notably the first one, Path of Destruction.
Yep. Path of Destruction.
So,
True.
What is it like? What does it even feel like to give voice to this specific character that's had this darkness for so long, that is so iconic within the Sith? It's like the ultimate Sith that gave us the rule of 2,
right.
and you provided us the voice of him.
Well, you know what I loved about that trial, and I always remember this, is how they would set somebody up as this is going to be the main Jedi adversary for Bane, and and they would set it up throughout the entire book, and then he would meet and he would like decimate them like within a page, and it'd be like, what was that whole setup for? And that would like continuously happen, with each of the stories. But I loved that character. I just loved where he came from, and how he rose, and the world of having a Sith Academy at the time.
Oh yes.
I really enjoyed, and it had so many cool characters in it. From that group, all of his mentors and his adversaries, and then his apprentices. It was a great joy to do.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like Wes says, we have a group of books that we have recommended to folks they read first. And previously we called it the Foundational Five. We've recently added some of the High Republic stuff to that, and we've kind of renamed it the Essential Six. But it's very funny that it's very interesting that you have narrated almost all of those books
Really?
outside of
Which are the
what
ones?
we just added. Yeah,
So
so we have the Darth Bane books, Kenobi. What else is in there?
Master
We
and
have,
Apprentice and Revenge of the Sith. Those are all
novels.
yours.
Are you
Master and
serious?
Apprentice. Yeah. That's really funny. Yeah,
all
it's really
you.
funny. I'm not even sure we totally realized that until fairly recently. So it's
Wow.
really funny. It's really funny this happened. And I do want to ask you about the Revenge of the Sith novelization. I mean, you kind of brought this up earlier. I mean, what is that like to be? I mean, I guess at the time, I assumed, did you along with everybody else kind of think that was going to be like the last Star Wars film, like kind of ever? Like, what was it like kind of tackling that experience, knowing that it was sort of the end of the saga, if you will?
Right. That's hard to know. I'm not sure what I felt. I think that since I was involved in the audiobook world and the novelizations, I kind of knew that there was more. Whether I thought that it was going to expand into what we have today, and I couldn't have guessed. But I don't know if I thought that would be the end of it all. But I found it very satisfactory. I mean, I thought the novelization was pretty terrific.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we definitely agree. We have famously called the Revenge of the Sith novelization maybe like the best Star Wars book that's ever been written. I mean, just because of the prose is phenomenal, and
Right.
that narration is also phenomenal as well. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Now, I do have to say, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here. I think that I know that you narrated the first Star Wars audiobook I ever listened to. That may have been the first audiobook period I ever listened to. So I've actually talked back to you a lot over the years. You've never responded, though, until now. You've never responded until now, so it's a surreal experience. But
now I'm not going to respond.
But you're still doing a lot of these projects, like we mentioned, some of the newer ones, specifically since the Disney acquisition. And so
Right.
since you've had opportunities to keep narrating these books, did you see that coming? Did you know that you were going to get to continue, or was that sort of a pleasant surprise for you?
Oh no, I did not know. I mean, it's it just depends, on what is being created, and there are certain characters that there was a time, not so much anymore, but back when when I was doing Darth Bane, and I'm not sure what Mark was doing at the time. He may have been doing the Legacy books, or maybe that had finished. But there was a time when, and this is before a lot of other narrators started joining the fold. I was doing some of the darker things. So I was doing more of the Sith-like books, and Mark was doing more of the Jedi and the young apprentices and things that were more, if it had Han in it, then usually Mark would do that. Luke, and I tended to do, somebody mentioned this, I tended to do the more of the prequel stuff. I would do things either with Kenobi or eventually Qui-Gon Jinn, which I was thrilled to do because he's my favorite character. And I was thrilled to be able to do Master and Apprentice when that was finally created. It was a real joy. So it just depends on what's out there. and what is being done. I think like the High Republic series, they're going to use. I know Mark's done some, but there's been some great people that some great new narrators that have been involved with that world. So I hope there's some more Qui-Gon Jinn books that are done, and we'll see what happens.
Man, you'll never get an argument out of us on that front. I'll tell you that. No, and I love that you mentioned all the different worlds that we're getting now, because the books are going in so many different places, and you have been able to live in a lot of those in the past, from like the Force heavy books like Master Apprentice, Brotherhood, The Sith of Bane, and you've also gone into like the really heavy militaristic stuff with like Catalyst and Battlefront, Twilight Company.
Yeah, I love Catalyst. Loved Catalyst.
It's obscenely good. It is obscenely good, truly. And I want to ask on a technical level, when you're narrating, is there a different just vocal approach when you spend most of your time kind of like in the war element versus like in the more Force vision-y kind of stuff? Like, do you approach that differently even in your preparation for the project?
That's interesting. There's definitely a way to narrate an action scene. Is that what you mean, or do you mean like just something that's more militaristic versus something that's a bit more spiritual and more like the Force-like? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I guess kind of shades of both, but yeah, definitely, you talk about narration so much, like when you're narrating a more spiritual planet versus like narrating a dirty battleground, like do you access kind of different parts?
Yeah, and luckily, and I do have Kevin's a fantastic director, but this in general, it reminds me when I was doing something completely different, but the director would say like, what we need here is more of a journalistic feel, or right now what we need is more like rugged. So we just want like, a man's man to do this kind of thing.
Sure.
And then this is more like journalistic. This is more intellectual. So we want somebody who's professorial, or who is being didactic, or maybe they just want something that's conversational. And so I think it plays into what you're saying, that yes, there are times when you're if it's Kenobi having one of his meditative states communicating with Qui-Gon, that is going to be different than doing oh my gosh, the book escaped me. You just mentioned it. Oh, I'm embarrassed.
Oh, Catalyst, Battlefront.
Battlefront.
I think, you only have 40 or 50 to go through. I can't imagine. We forget them.
And it's always the ones that no one listed. I kind of remember, like, was it MedStar?
Yes.
We talked about MedStar before you came on.
Really? Like, who knows MedStar?
That's so funny. Charles and I are both physicians. It's hilarious.
Oh, really? That's like the MASH unit.
It is.
Star Wars.
No, that's a perfect analogy. I love that. That is so funny. That's exactly what those books are.
Yeah, and they were kind of funny. I remember them being like, there was something. That's what I liked it more. Like it was kind of like MASH, in a way. Anyway, I got off. But Battlefront, that's an example, because that was. It wasn't Force-centric. It was all about the grunts,
Right.
Yeah.
That had a very different feel, to it, definitely. Catalyst, as you were saying, that had a feel to me, a different feel, because it was about the friendship between Krennic and, oh my goodness.
Krennic and Galen, right?
Galen.
Yes, Galen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that there was a lot there, there was a lot of character work there. And did I know? I did know. I knew that it was Ben Mendelsohn and Mads Mikkelsen who were playing those characters, so that helped me a lot. They're also two of my favorite actors. Too. Sometimes if I know somebody, like I lobbied for that one, that specific one, because I knew they were in it, and I asked them. I said, "Look, this has two of my favorite actors. Can you consider me for this one?" And nice. I fortunately got it.
Awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
We always like to see the behind the scenes stuff as far as these audiobooks get made. Is lobbying like, again, not to go too far deep into how the sausage is made, but like, is there, with folks like you and Mark who do a lot of these, and who are,
yes.
Obviously coming up, is there an element of lobbying for projects with a mixture of like, hey, this is the darker one, this is the lighter one. Like, what's the balance in there?
I guess that's so. I just remember when I knew who the cast was for that, who was going to be in Rogue One. I knew what the cast was, and we were doing Catalyst prior to Rogue One, I think. I'm not sure. Maybe it came out
At
after.
least with
That's
release
right.
dates. Yeah, I think it was released. It was one of those ones that was, I think, a few months
It did.
before.
It led up to Rogue One. It did. I think it came out like 2 or 3 weeks before. It wasn't very close. I mean, it was pretty close if I remember.
Wow.
And so I knew who those characters. I knew Forrest Whitaker was going to be a character, and these are all like some of my favorite actors. So
Yeah.
I do remember in that case. I don't know what Mark's done. I'm not sure if he said that he has done the same. I know that there are projects. I know he's told me there are some books that, and the same with me. I think there was one that he did where I was like, "Aw."
Right.
Yeah. Which was the one? Dark Disciple. Is that it?
Oh,
Yes, I was
another
like,
one of our favorites.
when that came out, I was like, "Aw." But there's Sith in there, and it's called Dark Disciple. That's. But I think Mark felt that way about. I shouldn't be stopped. I'm not really certain, but I know that there's some projects that I know Mark was like, "Oh shucks,"
I'm sure there's been nights where Mark Thompson goes out in the middle of a storm and just shakes his fist, going, "Davis!" You can see it, knowing him.
I have there's another buddy of ours that Mark knows too, who's a audiobook narrator named Oliver Wyman. Do you know who he is?
Not off the top of my head.
I don't believe he hasn't done Star Wars, but he does a lot of sci-fi, and he's a great narrator. Hi, Ollie. But we have a thing where we do exactly that, where we call each other whenever we see each other. We go, "Hello, Nemesis." So that's
you got it.
Oh man. Well, Jonathan,
Mark's a gem. I would never do Thompson. He's just the sweetest guy. He's a sweet guy.
Well, Jonathan, I heard you say the name Galen earlier, and I know you were referring to Galen Erso, but my mind could only go to Star Killer, and I'm sure you remember those books because that's some of my favorites.
Oh.
Those are some of the audiobooks that I listened to early on, and for those that haven't listened to those books, that's Star Killer's real name. It's Galen.
Go.
You've brought up another name though. You brought up Kevin Thompson's name quite a bit, and
Yes.
I'll admit that before we started talking to some of the narrators for these projects, I thought of your profession as a very solitary one, in that you would read a book and send it to someone, and it would be made and sent out to the public, and la-di-da. But now we know that it actually is quite a social thing. There's a lot of layers to it. What is that relationship like working with someone like Kevin? Can you tell us a little bit about how y'all kind of bounce off of each other to make that final product?
Well, it's been a great partnership over these years. It's been so long now, and he's a friend, and he's a great colleague, and it's like we all have a shorthand now, and how we work with each other. And I'm sure he works slightly differently with each person, like he knows how to get the best out of us. But it's been usually, when I'm sure if Mark told you what our process is. I mean, we tend to, these recording sessions usually are about 7 hours a day, something like that. You go in. Ooh. We go to the studio. We don't usually work from home. I mean, we did during the pandemic.
Sure.
Jonathan, did we lose you?
Hello?
There we go.
Hello?
There you go.
Sorry.
That's all
Where'd
right.
you lose me?
You said you worked from home during the pandemic, and then we were waited on bated breath.
Oh, my goodness. So I was saying sometimes we go into the studio and we'll be working. It's usually from like 9 to 5, 10 to 5, 10 to 6. That's usually what our schedule usually is. Okay. So we're in there, and 5 days a week usually for a book. That's usually the norm. Yeah. So, But yeah, and we have great. It's usually the same team. It's like the same engineers, the same Kevin, Nick Martorelli, the executive producer. There's a great sound engineer named Paul Goodrich, who is an Academy Award winner.
Not
for
bad.
making a short
That's fine.
film and doing
Yeah.
sound. So he takes care of the sound, and he mixes in everything, and the special effects. Everything comes from Lucas and John Williams' music, and they put it all together. That's what's so special about these books in general. Not all audiobooks are like this, obviously.
Right.
A lot of audiobooks is just straight narration. I wish there was more. I understand why. It's a great volume, and obviously you can't produce that thing for everything. But that is what makes these particular books so interesting.
Well, I mean, outside of the narration, yes. Because these, I would say, I push so hard for people to pick up the audiobook because it's an experience. I have an experience on the way to work for an hour and a half every Monday through Friday. It's great. I love listening to audiobooks on the way there, and I'm scrolling through your immense list of work here, like Kenobi, Mall Lockdown, The Force Unleashed. You got Master and Apprentice, but I have to ask you, out of all those characters you voiced, who is your one that you desperately want to return to, and why is it Darth Bane? I'm just kidding. But who is the one you want to return to?
I would love Darth Bane. Goodness. Well, I hope, if they, maybe somebody will pick up the ball and make a series.
Oh, hey. I am all
I'm
for it.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened,
Yeah.
As of yet. Or has it? Are you guys in the know? Oh, no, I don't.
When the
wish
day
we
I start
were.
getting those emails, I'm gonna have a very different day job. I'll tell you that much. Not just yet.
I
No,
love
you-
Darth Bane. Qui-Gon, really. Qui-Gon's the other one.
Wonderful. Okay.
You know who I also like, speaking of just recent, but I like this character, and I'd like to see him come back, is Rael Averross from Master and Apprentice.
Yes!
love Real
We love Real Ambrose.
Yeah, it's another character that I liked a lot, that I remember, just from recently, that I went, that character, he needs to come back.
We like
you
doing
know.
our own Rail Averross every once in a while on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
West, our
Jonathan,
resident
I'm not
Texan,
sure
is
if-
around a lot of them. So
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you realize how much the community utterly loves your performance of Rail Ross. I mean, it's seriously
really?
famous.
Yes,
Yes, it super
really?
is. I mean,
You
he's
adore
the
it.
he's the country Jedi. Everyone has
Yes,
referred
he
to.
is.
And
Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
It's funny. I'll tell you another thing that we do, or at least I do. If it's characters that are new, that are brand new, I try to cast it in my head like I'm casting a film.
sure.
So each character, it's a way for me to reference something. So I have my idea of who Rael Averross, if I was casting, and that kind of influenced my performance.
Ooh, and
You know.
and who is it?
And
I guess it's
I'm
the
not
answer.
telling you.
Okay, dang it! I thought we got you there. All right, that's fair.
No, I'll be fair. No, Sam Elliott. That's kind of who I.
Oh,
who I
That's
envision.
exactly who I
perfect.
thought, and I'm so
Really?
glad. It reads beautifully. It reads perfectly.
Oh,
I mean,
great.
who wouldn't want Sam Elliott as a Jedi? Come on.
Right? Yeah, and like that Jedi, he was just so jaded, and he
Yeah.
was somebody that had lived it all. He's like that world weary kind of guy. Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
that's how I kind of go along, and I view this. You're saying what makes this so special is, all the special effects and the narration, but really what it is, it's very close to cinema. And you have some narrators that view it. It's funny, just in the world in audiobooks, some people kind of pursue the narration in a theatrical vein, like that's what they're going. They're trying to do it as though they're performing on stage.
Sure.
Others view it cinematically. That's my preference, is to be as more on the subtle side, more on the quiet side, to bring people in instead of being overly theatrical in a way. That's just my perception of it, or
Yeah.
my approach.
Yeah, I love that, because when you have it in the air, the AirPods or however you're listening, I do a lot of dog walk audiobooks or when I'm doing myself, And that kind of intimacy you're talking about really hits when it is like Charles was saying, it's just you and me at that moment. It's just you talking and me listening.
Right.
So if it gets too bombastic, sometimes it throws it off a little bit, which of course is great in the right scenarios. But that kind of intimacy of just someone sitting around that campfire and talking in my ear, whew, I love it.
There's a technical thing too. This is a technical thing when you listen. There's some production houses where they prefer that the narrator not wear headphones. So when you don't wear your headphones, you tend to project more because you don't really. I like it because I kind of edit myself. I can hear what I sound like. I know when I can punch something or bring it back or be intimate. When I can get close to the mic and bring people in or not. Mm-hmm. And when I don't have my headphones, I end up shouting.
Sure.
That's what I tend to do. But other people, it's the opposite. What they view is they think that I've had people say, well, we don't like people who wear headphones because people become in love with their own voices.
Mm-hmm.
And they start
right.
like really, playing with everything, and and it gets over the top. So, anyway, did you ever see I don't know if you know that there's Michael Caine, who's one of my favorite actors, has these series of books and videotapes on acting for film. Have you guys seen these, or are you familiar with these? It's almost like a master class, but he's doing it for cinema, and it's fantastic. But he talks about how theater is like a doctor working with a scalpel, where cinema is a doctor working with a laser, because it's just very subtle acting. It's a completely different type of process than you do when you're working on stage. So it's the same. I have that view with narration. I made my choice, and I would prefer to be more cinematic, and other people would prefer the opposite.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. And it paints it so perfectly, thinking about it that way.
So we got a couple of your favorites. Is there a character that you haven't voiced
that
yet
I despise?
that's on your bucket list? Yeah, or that. That you hated doing. You're like, I don't want to do any more of the Dark Lord.
Again. Yeah. Not another Mon Calamari.
Or a Wookiee. The Wookiee was the best one.
Oh, I can't do that. That's something I cannot do. Oh, no. Yeah, Kevin used to do that. There were times when he said he would do like he would say, like do a Wookiee sound, and I would have to do it, and he would okay, then I'd listen to it. It was a sound
Not
effect.
Like that. Not like that.
I don't like it, Yeah. One that I haven't done. I don't. No, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. I'm gonna say I'm pretty content with everybody I've been involved with so far. Yeah.
Because you have done Kenobi. You have
That's
done
true.
Kenobi twice.
That's right. You have too long of a list. There's not any characters
I
left.
like those guys. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Is there anyone?
This is such a good problem to have.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, really.
I'm trying to think.
No, like there are some characters that I know, like, no, that's not for me. Yes, we're saying it's like also, it's knowing who you're not right for, per se. That's important also.
Yeah. So when they do the novelization of the holiday special on Kashyyyk, then that'll go to Mark. We'll have him do all the Wookiees.
Right. And Han,
Yeah, of course.
Stuff like that.
Oh,
he can do Luke.
Yeah. It'll be a group effort, like when you guys were did the from a certain point of view in Empire with the wills going back and forth.
Yes.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
That was how was that going finally after all these years? You guys have obviously known each other and you worked together, but being able to do that weird back and forth, like,
right?
What was that?
And we usually do that together. We do when we do that section usually for all those books. They usually have us in the same booth, so we're kind of playing with that. And We also did a great series that we were all together for. It was by this fantastic author named Ian Desher, who, what he does is he takes famous tropes and he will recreate them in verse, in Shakespearean verse.
Oh, right, the Shakespeare Star Wars.
Yes.
That's him. That
Yes.
sounded familiar. Yeah.
So those books, we actually we worked on them together. Like we were all Mark, January, Lavoie, and I were in the booth together a lot, like working together on that. And then we got to one of the greatest things that we got to do was we got to perform those live at Star Wars Celebration and a few Comic-Cons and stuff like that. But Star Wars Celebration, this was back in 2015 when we got to perform that. That was fascinating because I couldn't believe when we finally did it, you know, we walk on stage and there was like 2,000 people in the audience, and that was a real blast. Did any of you guys see that? Were you guys present?
This was
We're
my
not.
first celebration was this year.
Oh,
Same
that
here,
was,
same.
Congratulations. Mazel tov.
Oh yeah, it's all different now. My vacations are set for the rest of my life. That's for sure.
Right.
But how special? Yeah, there's like we've said it so many times. Like, just looking at all you've done, both like in special events like that, in books that we loved in the earlier years, all the way up into literally some of the most recent novels. You've done so much. You've created so many amazing characters. You've made the country Jedi Rail Averos. All the things you could want to do. So I gotta ask, as when people look back, this is the question we like to ask all of our the authors, narrators, everyone we talk about. Star Wars is so much about legacy, familial legacy, legacy of the Force, quite literally. What do you hope when people look back on Jonathan Davis in Star Wars? Like, what do you hope your legacy on this franchise, this community is going to be?
Holy crap.
We got the easy one for the last
Hard
question.
answer.
Yeah. This is a tough one.
Everyone always responds like this, and it makes me really happy.
Did you send this to Disney? Did Disney
They said
approve this
okay. They
question?
said, they said yeah. They said get him. Make sure he's off his game at the end.
I'm just glad to be a part of it. You know, it's just been grand, and I'm just very fortunate just to have had the opportunity and to continue to do it. That's how I view it. It's just been a real blessing.
Well,
Yeah.
if it has been half the blessing for you to do it as it has been for us to consume it, then I can't even imagine how great it's been. You, like Charles said, you brought so many of us not only into Star Wars, but into the medium of audiobooks. I think that like you have just really opened up a lot of our minds that didn't grow up with the books on tape as much to really, you know, primarily consume Star Wars through this now, through your voice. And I cannot wait for everything that's coming down the pipe. I'm sure most of which you can never talk about until it's announced, which is all right. But as we kind of wrap up here, I do want to say for our audience listening to this and watching this later on, in 2022 and beyond, what can you talk about that's coming up that you're excited about? And of course, where can people find you and your work online if they want to?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Trying to see. I know that there's a few projects down the line I cannot talk about at the moment.
That's fair.
But I'm looking forward to when those eventually are announced.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always find my work on Audible if you're interested in audiobooks. If you are on social media, I am at May the Force Be with Jono on Instagram and John Narrator on Facebook. That's about it for now. I'm redoing a website, so I don't have that up at the moment. And yeah, you could and keep an ear out for me and voiceovers when you have the radio on or TV on and stuff like that.
Absolutely. The amount of times you just pop up in people's day, I know, is pretty wild. And as I can literally hear the NDAs crackling in the background, we'll stop asking about future projects at the point. But we will say just a truly large thank you both for all the work you do and for making the time to come on the show. Obviously, our audience loves so much of what you do, and we can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you so much, and please, I'd love to come back. Have
done.
me and Mark come on. That would be.
Oh, goodness.
I will craft the email immediately.
Get that on the
Great.
books.
It'll just be yelling at each other back and forth, Thompson and Davis, about the projects you stole.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. We will get you back on with Mark, without Mark, who knows, very soon. And to everyone else, make sure you check out all of Jonathan's work. Just give a Google of all the projects he's done, and then you can listen to about 40 of them. And of course, we will see you next time. And as always, may the force be with you.
May the force be with y'all.
Dang, what a lovely man. Guys, Jonathan Davis is great. Listening to it back was just so lovely.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, a bucket list interview for me for sure.
Yeah.
Like it was a lot of fun. I hate we had so many technical difficulties. Apologies for that already. What can you do, man? I was on vacation and Wi-Fi it was crazy. I really appreciate Jonathan staying and working with us even through all that. And it turned out it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We got to have him back on for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially just like picking out the characters, his favorite characters that he did, and then casting one for us and Sam Elliott as Rail Averos.
Yeah.
Come on, that's
I felt
hilarious.
so vindicated. I felt so vindicated. It was exactly it.
So funny.
And then, of course, I will tell you all now, as we're off, you heard it on the interview. We are definitely going to try to get the Mark Thompson, Jonathan Davis duo interview. It is going to happen.
Cool.
I can't wait. I mean, we'll probably wait until like both of them are on a project or have something to go, because we want to make sure that they get to promote stuff. That's why we do this. But what a great time that's going to be. So I guess I want to say thank you all for hanging out and listening to that, watching this. These are some of our favorite things to do, and we have other interviews in the works. As I'll say, the emails are being sent. And for now, look forward to next week. In honor of Padawan's release, we are going to be talking about some of our favorite Star Wars Padawans next week. So be sure to come back Monday night or Thursday or Friday, whenever you're listening to this, and check us out then. And of course, in the meantime, you have so many shows on the UTD Network, so many articles on the UTD website to keep you satiated with the love of Star Wars. But on that note, my friends, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Living Force. If you support us on Patreon, thank you so much. You got so much coming down the pipe the rest of this year. We're so excited to show you. But a special thank you goes out to Brian Dooley, Patrick Ortiz, Earl Q, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Elizabeth Cloutier and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Eric Eilerson. Corey is at Corey M. Helton. Charles is at C. Hankel. Wes is at Boss Wes. And the show is at Living Force Pod. A special thank you to Matt Davenport, our amazing editor, Ryan, our graphic designer extraordinaire, and Wes, our producer and community manager. Thanks to Corey, Charles, and Wes for potting with me. Thanks to Jonathan Davis for joining the show. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. And as always, may the Force be with you.